Miniature soldiers, big opinions. This is the Conclave Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Conclave Podcast. I'm the Sandman, and joining me today I have the normal rabble. For example, I have the most beautiful man in 40k. He is about 30% of our sex appeal in total. It is Cripster. Cripster, how are you today?
I'm good. That's an outstanding introduction. I've got to live up to this. Jesus.
You just have to look the way you look, I think, is how you match up to that.
Over here with my giant forehead. Jesus.
And then I have a man who, if you've played COD, you've probably been beaten by. It's Rezza. How are you today, Rezza?
Hi there. Thank you. That's relatively nice.
Nicer than you are to people on COD, I think. It sounds nice. And last but not least, I have Adam. How are you, Adam?
Hello. I'm alright. Just here.
Joining me this week, I have a very special guest. For those of you that have listened for a while, you'll know that me and Adam and Rich and Cripster are all huge fans of the Tabletop Titans gang. So we are absolutely blessed to have Adrian with us today. How are you today, Adrian?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Awesome. We found it really interesting over the past couple of weeks because we've had a bunch of different guests on about the different ways people get into the hobby. So how did you get into 40k? What was your journey there?
Yeah, so I like to say I was painting models as soon as I wasn't eating the paint, which, you know, it's an ongoing struggle. But my dad actually got me started. He started playing, way back when. And so he actually got me started, like I said, very, very early. And we were just kind of, I was painting goblins and playing games that were like simplified versions of Warhammer. And then eventually, slowly and surely, started getting into it. And then it's my whole family. It's me and my three brothers. We've all played. They've always been like my co-competitors and, Dungeons and Dragons groups and things like that. So that's honestly how I got started. And then once I finished college, I got into the competitive scene. Frontline Gaming actually at the time was based in my hometown in Martinez, California. And so got to meet all those guys and just completely caught the bug and got to meet like this much bigger community than anything I had been exposed to before. And then, it was all downhill from there. So
What was your first army?
my first army, yeah, no worries. I want to say it was Craft-Rolled Eldar, and it was like what was that box set that was like all blue and had the Dire Avenger on the front of it? I have this vivid memory of that Battle Force set. It was probably 3rd edition or something. Super, super old. So that was my first one. And then once I realized you could cut up the models and glue them in weird different ways, I started playing Chaos.
Nice.
Brilliant. I mean, because you are a kind of a conversion maestro. I think we've been blessed to have kind of a different demon prince each week the last times you've had them on. How do you go about creating? Because I think it was your slug demon prince is genuinely terrifying.
Right.
as a model.
Mr. Handsy.
Yeah, that's right. It's a face hand or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been from years and years of collecting bits, to be honest. And I'll have all these things in mind. I have just like piles and piles of them, and I'll hold on to everything. You can ask my wife. When I made a custom Scar brand, this was using the legs from Mauler Fiend, that I kid you not, I had bought the kit when I was 12 years old. And then I did that conversion when I was like, 25. And I held on to it, and I told my wife, I was like, see, this is why I held on to him. This is the reason. And she's like, that's not helping your case at all. And so it's just having like this big database of just like models to build from and saying, I want to make a demon prince. I'll start with some inspiration. It might be from art, or it might just be some bits that I really want to do something with. In this case, it was honestly the top of that slug demon prince is a Turvagon belly. And I just had it, and I was like, I want to do something with this,
Yeah, that is cool. And Adam, you just converted your demon prince over also, which I think looks epic. Have you got many conversions in your army now?
Yeah, I've got a few. Mine are Death Guard as well. So like
excellent.
this demon prince, he's like he's a part. I can't even remember what they are, but they're the AOS like skeleton flying Morghasts. Right, I knew the name would come to me. So he's like a Morghast body with the head from one of the like rot flies from AOS, with a lot of green stuffing and holding a big side. So he's like kind of the rotted kind of a lot of green stuff just to give him some skin and stuff. So he looks really cool. He's not quite on the like green stuff level of your guy, but and I don't think he's quite as horrifying either. I mean, he's pretty scary, but if I saw your guy like creeping around the tabletop, I'm going to put my hand Tanya, then that's a bit more frightening.
Hey, fair enough.
I gotta say, I'm looking at my glass cabinet of Warhammer stuff. I've suddenly realised I feel really guilty. I have no conversions whatsoever.
I was just thinking that actually.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at the cabinet right now, and the most I have is literally one head swap. That's it.
Well, I've only been in hobby a year, and I've got loads more than you.
Yeah.
You like clean lines. I mean, that's the thing. I think you're like, I don't know. I mean, maybe Adrian and I are quite similar. Like, especially with Death Guard, it's brilliant because you can mix it up. You can stick Tyranid bits on it. You can have tentacles coming out of random
No wrong
places.
answers.
And no wrong answers. But whereas with you've got Custodies and Imperial Fists, which are like the Lego set guys and the oiled up rubbing themselves down whilst walking around the Imperial Palace guys. Either way, they're into kind of clean lines. So I mean, you could do a conversion to get the muscular topless guys, and from if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device, and have them.
Don't give him ideas.
Also, I love how both of those descriptions of my armies are like genuinely interchangeable as well.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you, Rich? Have you got many conversions in your army?
So I've done quite a few weapon swaps for make some of my characters unique. So
Okay,
I've got
cool.
a Primarchs captain with a spear.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
That's
thought
sick.
was really cool.
I especially like your chapter master.
Yeah, my chapter master is I guess a conversion. He's a Primaris mixed with a Sandguard body to make him like a really cool smash captain.
yes.
And
And a Custodian shield.
there we go.
What do you use the spear as?
I used the spear in particular. I would use as a power sword because it kind of just looks like a really long power sword.
Yeah, I feel like
That's cool.
And all my my Sandguard are mixed between Stormcast Eternal kits and Sanguinary Guard kits as well.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Such a better scale. It's funny because we were actually talking about this the other day, this idea of like clean lines and kind of different styles, right? And Brian and I are very different in that regard. We both like bright colors, but we look at our Chaos Knights. Was one we were talking about the other day, where it 100% shows our different approaches to things, right? So like my Chaos Knights are one of each god, converted just up the wazoo, all this like weird wacky stuff, and lots of like weird blends and things like that. And then Brian's are like all the same faction. They're Khorne, they're clean, they're crisp, they look great, but it's like totally the other end of the spectrum. So I wonder like how much of that influences like if you have conversions in your army, and if you even do have them, to what extent do you actually include them in your army? I think that's really interesting.
I think a really good place with conversions, and I'm just thinking this because I've got them in the cupboard above me, is just if there's older sculpts.
Yeah.
So the one, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, but the one I really don't like is the Sanguinary Guard, because whilst they're really cool in principle, they have knee abs. Why? I mean, I'm not a gym bunny, but I'm pretty sure even like Dwayne Johnson, even The Rock, doesn't have abs on his knees.
Just because you forgot on leg day. Oh, don't forget the Sanguinary Guard.
Never
So
I love this. I love how Adam says this, and he goes to the gym the most out of all of us.
Well, I mean, not at the moment because they're all closed, but I try to. But yeah, so what I did is I got again AOS because they have very good sculpts. I'll hold it up for the camera, but I got the Stormcast body and just used that as the Sanguinary Guard because they just look cool and they don't have the weird knee. It's not even an ab; it's a hot cross bun.
Their axes are good for power axes.
Yeah, and their axes are good for power axes. Yeah.
I've seen a few people comment this on our post now, Adam, and I'm the same. I can't not see it. Now that you've pointed this out to me, I just every time I see Sanguinary Guard, I just think, why have they got Neo?
It's like what it is. It's like that. It's like
Hmm?
that picture that went around the internet. Like, and this ages me because this is like a 2001 internet thing. But do you remember there was that thing that went around that was that picture of Tom Cruise working out that he had one of his front teeth exactly in the middle of his face.
Yeah.
And after that, you can never not see it. It's the same thing.
It's so funny. I was painting actually some Sanguinary, the actual models themselves, but as Noise Marines. And I was looking at these things. I was like, is that a butt or is that abs? Like, either way, I'm kind of okay with it because this is like a Slaneshi model. But I'm like, what's going on there?
It's weird.
Do you know what? That's really interesting because one of my other sort of projects this year is to build up an Emperor's Children army.
Yes.
So I've obviously got all the bodies because I've got the wings and the backpacks. I've got all the bodies of the Sanguinary Guard just sitting around. So you've just given me a great idea, sir.
Well, we may or may not have an upcoming video about just this topic.
Ooh,
preview.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Great plug.
World exclusive.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, that was a good way to get the plug in. I like it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny actually. While on topic, we'll circle back to Dark Angels later, I'm sure. But because you've recently gotten into them, and I think you mentioned yesterday, as of today, of recording, that you kind of have to do quite a lot of converting with Dark Angels.
Yes.
It's a kind of a converter's dream if you're looking for an army to convert. Because you get an absolute metric ton of bits as Dark Angels, because all of the upgrade kit, there's like 3 upgrade kits, and you get the upgrades with boxes, and also all of the characters, as you found out, are incredibly old, so it is very advisable to convert your own. They're so small compared to the new models.
Old
honestly.
Pigeon 2 as Azrael.
And how are you doing Azrael, out of curiosity?
So that's
a very selfish question, but
no, I just finished him actually. So I took an Indominus Captain naturally because you gotta get those robes, and I had, again, because I'm a hoarder of bits, I had the Dark Vengeance box set, and
nice.
I had just some of the parts I hadn't used yet, including like the perfect, the iconic Dark Angels helmet, the Captain head from that set. So I've got that on the Indominus body, and then I'm taking there's an arm from the Intercessor kit where they're sort of straddling a bolter in their arm, kind of like the current Azrael model is. So I've got that, and then I ended up not using this. I don't like the sword arm from the Indominus Captain. It's very 90-degree right angle-y. And so I dropped that just for another arm that's kind of holding out his hand, and the Interrogator Chaplain backpack. So I literally I just primed him this morning, and so we'll be sharing that real soon, because I was I really want to use him. I love the concept of the old model, but yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a shame that we have some very old models there. And actually, the Captain from Dark Vengeance is he's slightly bigger, and he's basically a perfect Ezekiel.
Yes.
I guess technically he's got the combi plasma, but I'm sure he can cover that up with some well-placed purity seals. That's what I do with all of my mistakes.
I feel like the only Marine player out there who doesn't like purity seals.
Heresy.
That's because the Imperial Fists haven't done enough to actually get any.
Okay. You want to start this, Mr. I Play Dark Angels, and we have no secrets at all ever from the Imperium. Jesus Christ.
Sorry, Adrian.
No. Hey,
I'm sorry to Adrian. I'm not sorry at all to Quipster.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They're too busy repairing the Phalanx or building Meccano or something, or Connects or whatever it is.
That's right.
The Phalanx has been repaired. That's canonical now.
Well, they should have put a purity seal on it.
But to be fair,
that's how they repaired it. They put one massive purity seal.
Bang.
I don't know.
Done, guys.
I don't know if you guys have this in the US, Adrian, but over here in the UK, we have this sort of joke about when you go to a mechanic with your car, and you get in there, and they just go, "Oh yeah, mate, that's your carburetor's gone there. Yeah, the whole thing's going to be hundreds of quid, man. I ain't got no parts." I reckon the mechanics have just done that with the Phalanx, right? They've just gone, "Oh yeah, that's your quantum flux engagement drive there. That's not going to work for you. I ain't got the parts. We haven't got the STC for that. We're going to just slap a purity seal on it. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it."
The quantum what?
Does that mean that Terra is going to send a whole shipload of Karens to Mars to discuss the bill?
Absolutely.
There's no way I'm paying for this much manual labour.
Can I speak to a manager, please?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my lord.
But before you move on, Ed, you've converted so much of your Gene Stealer army. You need to talk about that.
You got to talk about Spud, man.
The which one?
Spud is my. I have 2 patriarchs, and one of them is this incredibly old patriarch. Whenever I say that, it's quite funny because everybody thinks of the really old cool one, which is the guy in the chair, which is an exceptionally awesome model.
Naturally.
On the toilet.
I would pay a lot of money for that model. However, I don't have that one. I have the other one that most people aren't aware of, who is this grotesquely hideous metal model.
It's the ugliest thing I've ever seen.
I had no idea that even existed.
Yeah. And my Gene Stealer cult is entirely farm-based. So it's there's a lot of conversions. There's a lot of mining equipment that I switched out for pitchforks, etc. There's hay bales all over the shop. It's it's been a proper labour.
That's amazing. I'd love to see that.
My Gene Stealer cult farmers.
Hey, I'm going to send it to you on Instagram.
It's fine because the more mutant end of the Gene Stealer cult does resemble large parts of the rural population of the UK, so it's fine.
Oh, shots fired.
Our one listener from the countryside is going to be upset with you.
I know. Everyone and their mums has got guns around there, so
Oh, that's great. Yeah, the GSC, it's funny because they're another army that could be a converter's dream, but I think a lot of people are intimidated by doing conversions on about 200 models. And so it's but they're so perfectly placed to be like, yeah, they're supposed to be out, uprisings from different parts of wherever, they obviously go heavy on the mining colonies, but yeah, it could be an agrarian society. Obviously the Mechanicus kind of style of GSC is like another really tempting one. But
Bladed Cog.
Yeah, the Bladed Cog. I think people are scared by doing conversions on that level, honestly, because that's a big commitment.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of the AdMech armies, GSC armies, and they are incredible. Like, yeah, you do have to buy 2 armies and make one out of it. So
I was going to say, in terms of conversions, Ed, you had that idea for one of the coolest conversions I think ever, and that's what are the rolly truck things?
The Goliath.
Combine harvesters.
A combine harvester.
Combine harvester. Yeah. So
no, I know what a combine harvester is. I meant the Gene Stealer model.
Yeah, the Goliath truck.
That's the one.
Yeah. The Goliath Rock Grinder is genuinely one of my favourite models in 40k.
Yeah,
because everything it does is hilarious. It's
Right.
just the funniest. Sometimes you play 40k and you like imagine the cinematics, right? Like you imagine your lieutenant standing in the doorway, but like everything a Goliath Rock Grinder does in a game is never not funny. Like from deployment to death, like that film would be hilarious. They're just a brilliant unit.
I mean, it's the idea of something like that, like attacking custodies.
Right.
Yeah.
It really irks me, but it is actually quite an amusing image of like this like elite golden warrior just being mown down by a piece of mining equipment.
Right.
And then another custodian runs towards it, and a guy in the back of the Goliath Rock Grinder lobs a bag full of dynamite at the custodian and just hopes for the best. It's just hilarious. Yeah.
And they finally like kill this ramshackle piece of junk there, and it explodes over all of them, killing half of these 1,000-year-old warriors. It's beautiful.
But stuff like that is like what makes, and I one of the few armies I don't have, but what makes like the orcs so cool in my mind is just that they just drive around in these like ramshackle piles of crap, basically, that don't work other than via their belief in them going faster, because they painted them red, and yet they will take down the most elite, the custodies and the best of the Eldar, and they'll just take them down, and in some cases by just ramming into them and exploding, because that's fine. I mean, when you're an angry fungus, anything is pretty much okay, right?
Yeah. Hey, as long as you believe. You have to believe in the power of friendship when you're an orc. That's what it's about.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how we get more wins on COD, guys. Believe in the power of friendship.
So basically, just have Rich do everything then.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Awesome.
But Adrian, you've one question before we move on, Ed, if I may. One talking, I guess, on the conversion theme as well. One army that as well as Dark Angels, you've got into is the Sisters, and I'm a big fan of the Sisters. Yes. Massive fan of them. Have you done much conversion work on your Sisters so far, or is that because obviously they're super detailed models? I think they can be quite intimidating to convert as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The main conversions I've done, I have a Canoness, which I've done up from totally blanking, the healer of the Sisters, which I actually don't normally play, but I love the model. So I have her with a couple of parts from like the Black Fortress character with the big chainsaw, and so I love that conversion. That one's like completely scratch built. But my biggest conversions in that army are the Repentia. I'm not crazy about the new Repentia models, to be honest. I feel like yeah, they're just not quite in the spirit of I love the idea of like these crazy like Resident Evil, Silent Hill style. Just like really I don't know. It's something more like alien and unknowable about them. And so I ended up getting the Sisters of Slaughter as the basis for them, the Daughters of Cain models,
right?
And converted them up with a bunch of chain swords. I went in and found all of my extra Space Marine chain swords and put them on like halberds basically. And so I've got 20 of those, and they're just so much more dynamic and just terrifying looking. I was like, I want to cover up their faces and make them just totally like dehumanized, and that's the main thing because I love the line. The only thing was the Repentia just didn't quite do it for me. Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks. Yeah.
Not to hijack Ed's thing, but I was just going to ask, like, what armies do you have at this point?
Do I have or do I not have?
Well, what's funny about actually that to me is I don't know if this is accident or whether this is something that attracts you to the army, but you seem to have a lot of the armies on the channel that are traditionally quite tough to play.
Yeah, that's right.
Like you have orcs and Gene Stealer Cult and sisters. Nothing is right. Brian just loves Space Marines. That's why I love Brian. But like at the same time, like is that something that attracted you to certain armies as well as just like style and just things that look cool? Do you like armies that are really tricksy?
Yes, 100%. It's I love like tricksy is kind of the word, right? The sneaky plays, the ones that can really reward you, learning how to play it really well. Things like Harlequins, things like orcs, things like I'm the Eldar and the Chaos player generally on the channel. So it's all the weird stuff, which does also not end well for me a lot of the time, right? Because we are playing some armies, and Brian's like, well, I just brought an efficient army, and I'm like, oh, but watch what I can do. And then if I like make one mistake, it like all falls to pieces, right? Which is also fun at the same time too. So that makes for good drama. But yeah, 100%. That's my aesthetic, absolutely.
No, I love that. Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And a lot of the Xenos happens to just fall down that avenue for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's you think about the design, like designing a game around the aesthetic of these armies, and a lot of them are like the Space Marine aesthetic and the design philosophy is efficiency, synergy, consistency, and so that's what they are. Ergo, like all these Xenos factions that are like, well, they can't be as tough, they can't be, all the same things that Space Marines are. So it's like all the other niche weird things, which I think is great.
Yes. Space Marines, this is why it's so interesting to me. I said this a couple of times on the podcast, I think, where it's actually unlikely that Space Marines would be the best army in the game. So, and to prove that point, Space Marines had to have like 3 times the number of rules as everything else to be the best army in the game.
Right. Yep.
Because they are never going to be on the fringes of tricksy, durable, killy, resilient. They're never going to be anywhere because they are the jack of all trades army. They are actually designed rules wise. They're designed for new players.
Exactly.
And that's like even if you're just comparing like faction specific bonuses, they're far simpler. Like look at even Necrons. They came out at the same time.
Yep.
That was so much more complicated.
Oh my god.
It's crazy.
No, I was going to say, I do to go on Ed's point, I do like the fact that the new codexes are leaning into more the sort of individuality behind the factions, like the Death Guard one. I mean, I've got the. I mean, much like you, and as these guys will attest, I have far too many armies and far too many sprues lying about. But yeah, like the new. Even the supplements, even the Blood Angels stuff and the new Dark Angel stuff, it really leans into the sort of the more of the fluffy side behind them, while still obviously being pretty darn powerful. But the Death Guard one especially, I thought that was it has its issues with a certain big man who's sat on the shelf behind me. But the overall codex I think is brilliant, and the way that you build your army and the way it leans into that idea of that like slow creeping pathogen that just ruins everything around it. It's so Nurgle. It's good. I love it.
It's so thematic and
enthusiasm.
No, I think it's great. I think, and this is something I'm really excited about 9th edition. So 7th edition had major problems. I don't know if you guys were playing competitively at the time, but it had big problems where it was very alpha strikey, very a few select armies at the top. And the 8th edition came along and kind of flattened everything, and it made for a much more balanced game, but also removed a lot of the flavor. Chaos in particular, I didn't love Chaos through all of 8th edition because it lost so much of the flavor. And now with 9th edition, especially, like the Death Guard Codex, I think we're starting to see that flavor come back in, and they're taking more risks, which means sometimes they're going to mess up, sometimes you're going to have more Tarion, but overall, I think it's totally worth it, right?
I mean,
for sure.
The big change out of that for me on that was that I thought is so redolent of that focus and making it more fluffy from Chaos, and obviously Death Guard being the example of this, is just stop running cultists. Yeah, right? We all know it's an efficient thing to do, and I think I've said this on the podcast before. But like, if you're a Chaos Space Marine army, have Chaos Space Marines. Don't have or Plague Marines in the case of the Death Guard. Don't have 30 cultists or like 60 Poxwalkers. Well, I mean Poxwalkers may be a bit different, but like your army should be the Astartes, the Heretic Astartes. That's what they're there for. I mean Ed's big, and if I may speak for you here, Ed, your
Ed's big
dream. Ed's big, yeah. Ed's big dream.
Weight have I put on it?
I'm sorry, that came out.
Sorry,
very, very
Adam.
unfairly.
Jesus.
No. So Ed's dream, as I understand it, is to be able to run the tide of heretic Astartes in the Black Legion, right?
Yes,
With
yes.
the 1,000. I mean, am I right, Ed, about the
Yeah, I just finished the second Black Legion book. I'm a big Black Legion.
Oh, it's okay.
So good.
Yeah.
So if they bring out that as a something that you can do with the new Chaos Space Marine Codex, that would be
Yeah.
awesome. It'd
That'd be
just be so
great.
good.
Yeah, and that's funny
Yeah.
you mentioned that because we also have the death of the Scout Marine, right, which was the other like mega spanned unit, and which just pissed GW off to no end when they're like looking at these full Scout armies and they're just like, this is like not what they intended. And so,
Set of 15 Scout Marines on eBay.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
oh god, and it's good. This is something I say on the channel all the time. Like, we play all type of Warhammer. We play fun. We play like narrative, casual, competitive, and even as a competitive player, like I want these restrictions. Like, force me to play a lore-based army. I think that's great. You still play competitively. You have like the box is just different that you have to kind of play inside of, and that's great. So I'm absolutely a big fan of these. Someone that owns about 120 cultists, I think this is a great change.
And he starts a word bearer's army.
Yeah.
I mean, the question I was actually going to ask is, you guys, I think, have a bit of a reputation at the moment for being actually quite a competitive based channel. But I saw in an interview recently, Brian was saying like, oh, actually, even though I've got this reputation, I'm a massively narrative player. Yeah. I was just wondering, like, A, was he just lying? And B, are you guys, it's like the narrative something you guys always try and build in? Is it quite important? Or sometimes you guys look at each other just like, I'm going to murder you today?
Well, that's a great question. It's a combination of these things, right? You have to always be balancing them. And so I think one thing we talk about is you can have the best game of Warhammer of your life with two of the worst armies, as long as they're both equally like terrible. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's you're playing good Warhammer there, and we kind of jump between different ways of playing. This is another thing we talk about where I think a lot of the disagreements in Warhammer or any like game is when two players come to this game with different expectations of how they're going to play it, right? If you want to play super casual and narrative or whatever, and that's fine. If you want to play hyper competitive and just beat the crap out of each other, that's great, as long as you both agree to do like the same thing. And so we've kind of had to navigate that because in competitive it's such a particular mindset that I think if people get stuck in, you lose out on kind of some of the fun. And so what we get to do, luckily, on the channel is we will build like non-optimal armies. I think a lot of the time armies are like tournament-ish, but definitely not optimized because we're like, I want to bring a new Leviathan or whatever, and we just want to show something that's cool in narrative. But then once we get into the game, it's like, okay, these are the tools we have. How can we play the best game we can within that and be very competitive? So it's kind of navigating those different paths.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of actually, takes me on quite nicely there to something similar I was going to talk about, which is my three things that I really love about Titans. I think that I think not necessarily unique to you guys, but I think you guys do better than a lot of channels that I've seen. And the first is kind of the perception of competitive players. And so I think this is a really important thing that you guys probably unknowingly do. But competitive players have a really bad reputation, and there are bad eggs in the universe. I won't dispute that. But like, I think that people can see that actually, because I actually had heard, and I'm sure as most people had, yours and Brian's names long before I'd ever seen Titans, and that's because you guys were quite well known in the competitive 40k sphere. And then seeing you guys and seeing how you play and how you get on has been so interesting to see how people play at that top end of the game when you do play competitively. And secondly, it's like this idea, the perception of competitive play, because again, I think there's a perception where it's going to be like ridiculously annoying to play competitively. Like it's going to be like, are you within the distance there, measuring things like 4 times? And don't get me wrong, some measurements can matter, but like I think probably the most interesting thing that I've learned from watching you guys was how, like playing by intention and things like that. And I'll be honest, I've really taken that into my like home games too. That's because it's like it's just such a better way to play. And that was something I learned from you guys there, because it actually speeds up the game so much and there's just no confusion. And then the final thing, which is, as you're talking about, is kind of toning down the lists. And this is something that we've actually talked about in the podcast a few times, because as you say, you're dead on the nail there, where you're like, sometimes people are coming in at different levels. And I always say 40k is often like some bullshit experiment in game theory.
Yeah.
Because what happens is if you match with somebody from like, you know, who you don't know, you go, oh, I'm going to take a fun list. But he might take 3 of these. So I'm going to take 3 of these.
Right.
And then you end things that getting jumbled. And I think that it's so important to me because, like I say, I'm sure all channels do this, but you guys talk about it on screen where you'll be like, oh, well, Brian's taking Salamanders this week. So obviously he's only taking 1 squad of Eliminators because in this matchup, 2 squads might be a bit too powerful. And the reason I say that's important is because I think it's in the UK, I don't know about America, I feel like it is looked upon weirdly if you said to somebody, hi, yeah, so you play Dark Angels. Yeah, I don't have the firepower to deal with that many Dark Angels because I'm bringing my Craft Worlds today. Would you mind toning it down? I think you would be looked upon as odd if you said that to a player. And it's a perception I would love to see changed in the community. Sorry, I appreciate that was a lot of praise and very cringy. So
I was going to say, that's like a rapid fire compliment.
Probably will get you everywhere, so I won't say that. No, that's I totally agree with everything you're saying. I think these are all really important things to do, and I think we're definitely starting to see a culture change, partially as these things become more visible. Also, obviously, we had the big Alex Fennell thing a few years ago in LVO, where the kind of this idea of sportsmanship and playing to intent really kind of became public, and it was a moment that kind of on one hand I think reinforced some people's ideas of what competitive players do and do not do, and then on the other hand was saying, actually no, this is really important. We play towards intent, and so that's why we feel really strongly about kind of playing in that style on the channel of this isn't supposed to be a simulation, a measuring simulator. You know, we can sit and argue about millimeters. You know, I heard one guy one time say that you can never physically be exactly 9 inches away from something. It's like it's humanly impossible to place a model like that. And it's like, okay, you're missing the point a little bit here. You know, we're trying to. If this is a strategic game, this is it's not interesting, right, to play towards the specificity. And if you take it to the absurd, it's like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And it's like, yeah, that's basically what you're arguing for when people try to make these stances. And so, yeah, playing towards intent, just trusting. Well, I don't say trusting your opponent. You have to trust your opponent. You have to like know all the rules and kind of draw that line between. You're not trying to gotcha your opponent, but you also are like you want to give space for skill and for knowledge of everything, and so it's a tough balance to find, but I think it's really important. And yeah, competitive players get a real bad rap. I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it's also nothing wrong with you asking the person you're playing if you're ever sure something.
Yes.
It's like just don't take it badly, and don't be scared to do it at the same time. Like, are you sure? Because Brian was doing it yesterday. Like, can you just double check that because it sounded really good.
Yeah.
And then at some points it was really good because it was wrong. But at some points it is just because it's a new codex.
Right.
But it's nothing wrong with that.
But also, you guys, you one thing I think, again, sorry, we're getting back on the cringe train here, but one thing that you guys I think do very well, to add to Twitter's point, is you clearly look like you're having fun, which is why I think Titans is so successful.
Right.
Whereas there are back reps out there you watch where someone just gets annihilated, and though they kind of, oh yeah, it's okay, they're like, yeah, they hate this hurts them, right? That feels bad to him. but you guys, you look like you're having fun. I hope you're having fun.
Oh, sure.
And you're also good at like honestly reminding each other. Like, again, we all watch the Blood Angels, Dark Angels because we've got a couple of Blood Angels players and Dark Angels players in our group, so we all watched it last night. Like you guys will help each other out, even though it's a nominally kind of competitive game. I mean, there were a couple of occasions where Brian was like, "Oh, you got to feel no pain," and you were like, "Oh no, wait, you're not in range. I'm not in range of my
Exactly.
my pennant." And it's stuff like that. Whereas I think, again, to Ed's point, there is a bit of a perception which unfortunately translates into reality sometimes, certainly in the UK, where competitive play in it's pretty bloody small potatoes competitive, because it's you down at your local game store in the league with someone, where it's not exactly like you're going for the Las Vegas Open, that people in that will be afraid to say stuff like that to each other, and actually afraid to be like, oh, are you sure you don't have any strats that could help you out in this situation?
Right.
So I think it's good to encourage that, and it's good to see people who are at the sort of the top of the hobby, as it were, actively encouraging that, because it will promote that better culture, I think.
Yes, 100%. And that's something we take very seriously, right? Is like people are watching, people like whether we want to or not, they're going to they're going to have a takeaway from that. And so I think it's really important to make an example of it. And those things that we do at the table, like we also do in a tournament setting. It's like Rezza, you were saying, like asking questions. I think that's really, really important. And that's a skill that I definitely learned as I played, over the years in competitive was, being quiet. You don't have to be quiet. You can ask them questions, and that's okay. Just the important thing is like making them feel like you're not interrogating them, even if God forbid you think that they are cheating or something. It's about like asking the question, like, oh, like I don't understand this rule. Can you show me that one, or how does this work? And like kind of prompting them to either clarify, double check themselves, double check you in some cases, right? And I think that's really important. And it's like make the other person feel like, oh no, they're not trying to interrogate me. They're just trying to understand for their own benefit. And I think that's really important to kind of set the tone. It's a weird like socialization thing you have to be constantly doing in a tournament, to like also win games, but also not leave everyone really like pissed at you if you win. That's important.
I'm feeling really pressured to give you a compliment now.
give me a compliment instead.
Yeah.
Sandman, you are a very charismatic and warm individual. It's lovely to talk to. There you go. There's a compliment.
That
was
like the review
disgusting.
at a job. I love it. No,
That's right.
But we've gone with someone else.
I was just going to say to that point as well. You guys effectively have like I was about to say the third man, and then I was like, oh wait, that's unfair. I'm forgetting Bridger. The fourth man
in the chair.
The fourth man on your team is Chat. And I'm sure Ed will bring this up later. But I think some of our favourite moments watching it are where you guys are playing away, and then all of a sudden Bridger will just be like, oh yeah, Chat's saying this is the thing, and then it'll just be like, is it? Wait, oh, okay. It's just good. It's just good to see.
The thing is, it's amazing how I know it sounds silly, but like it's amazing how wrong Chat can be.
Yes.
Because you'd assume they have the books.
Right.
I don't understand. So it's like people like they've got strength 5, and then Bridger will say that, and then like Brian, I find it so funny when Brian's like really confident. He's like, no, it's not. And then Bridger goes, oh, okay. Oh yeah, Chat was just messing with me. Sorry about that.
I love it. Yeah,
I love that.
They're totally the fourth character. Yeah.
The best example when they were correcting you on a book that hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
Like, how do you know this?
Right. It's like,
Bridger goes like, first of all, thank you. Second of all, I don't approve of how you guys have this information.
That's right.
It's brilliant. It's honestly brilliant.
Thank you. No, we love it, and we're so lucky to have Chat as this like fourth character, honestly, because I think obviously like people are actually genuinely involved with each and every stream. We talk to them, we chat, we can fix mistakes. That's the thing we're really, really happy to have. It's every other format basically, even if it's live and they don't have like a bunch of chat people in chat, it's easy to make mistakes. There's probably never been a game of Warhammer ever played where there wasn't one mistake made, and so we can catch ourselves and do our best to fix it or address it, and we're lucky to have that. But also, it's this funny sort of reminder of if you're looking at anyone talking about Warhammer online, just remember, like, they're like Chat. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, and we're still gonna check them, right? So it's hard not to be sassy with them sometimes because it's like, really, Chat? Are you sure? Are you sure?
I was gonna say, like, Chat must really annoy you sometimes.
There are moments where I'm
like you just read through it, you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, Chat, sure, yeah.
What was it, Chad? I think you said yesterday. It was like, hey, can you guys only correct me on the stuff that makes me better?
Yeah. That's right. They're like, oh, actually, you don't get this, and I was like, oh, come on, guys. And what was it? Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I do feel for Bridger sometimes, because I think like last night he made quite a funny comment where it was just like, because of how fast, because obviously we're sitting there watching it, right? We see how fast it moves, and obviously he's trying to monitor that, and he was just, I remember at one point last night he was just like, guys, Chat's saying something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And I think you or Brian
probably
were just
another
like,
argument about Mortarion.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, oh god, yeah. That was a good example of one where it just like people getting heated over nothing. Well, not over nothing, but over something relatively small, and it just all kicking off in the chat. It's just people on the internet. Ugh.
We use your chat to compliment each other.
That's great.
Like send each other nice
invariably, Normally because we tune in and then realise we're all watching it independently, and it's like, oh, hey Sam, man, oh, how you doing?
And I think that's great. Yeah.
See, this is the thing, though. These guys will either use chat to like compliment each other or mess with me every time.
That's beautiful. Oh, that's great. Yeah, and Bridger's got the toughest job in the world. I've produced a few episodes, and I don't go in as in depth on chat, and I've been lucky enough to do easier episodes. Like Bridger, basically always plays the custodians. We might get him on for Blood Angels, but it's like armies that we know, so there's never a problem. But like especially now, like my God, you guys saw the game yesterday. There's so many rules and like rules turning off rules and interacting with other rules and all this crazy stuff, and like we're having a tough time following it. We play 3 games a week at least, but Bridger's the one that's kind of managing all that and managing chat and trying to filter out and keep the trolls quiet, and we're lucky we have several mods that will sort of help with that, but like just managing the flow of information from chat to us. I give him a hard time sometimes because he'll like say something just that chat says and it's like clearly wrong or like dumb, and I'm like, what are you saying? And it's like, no, he has like a million things he's processing right now. Like, I can't imagine. We could not do the show without him. So.
Yeah, but he does take the mick out of the Dark Angels quite a lot. So no sympathy for Bridger on this podcast.
That's one that
I love it. I love it.
If everyone can say their worst thing about Bridger right now, and the Custodians, Quipster, starting with you.
Hey, I'm not okay with this.
For sure.
Oh. Yeah. No. Okay. And interesting, actually. Sorry, on rules, because I've asked this question a few times now on the podcast to guests, and that's my favourite question, I think, which is that as someone that's played 40k for a long time, can I get 2 rules? One which is like in the previous edition, which was just absolutely crazy that you remember, and then 2, a rule from a previous edition that you would like to bring in to 9th edition today, or at least in some form.
Yeah, that's great. Honestly, there's 2 main rules that I can think of that were just bananas at the time, but they're kind of the same idea. So I'll just talk about invisibility. Are you guys familiar with the old invisibility spell?
Yeah,
we've heard of it.
Yeah, you cast it on a unit. They can. Yeah.
We got a crash course on this from Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming.
Yeah.
And his shenanigans involving an invisible Warlord Titan or Warhammer.
Oh no! The worst was like. The things that became normalized for you when you're playing and you're playing competitively, first and foremost, was Magnus flying around, or Lord of Change could do the same thing, flying around. He can't be charged because he's flying. He's invisible, so he can only be hit on 6s, and he has a 2+ rerollable invulnerable save.
Good lord!
And this was like
What?
This was a thing, yeah. So Frontline or ITC had to implement a rule for the rerollable invulnerable saves to say that it wasn't a fully. They modified the game at that point. They said it was a 2-up invuln that you could reroll into a 4+ invuln, and that was the way to tone it down, which was still like insane. And this was
wow.
And this was like
that
the
is
thing.
vulnerable.
Yeah,
bonkers.
Starting to look at Mortarion in a different light right now.
Yeah.
We thought 3+ invulnerables are bad.
I was gonna say for all you listeners out there that are getting salty about the impossible robe, just thank God you're not playing that anymore.
Well, this was my God. I played Zinch Demons, and so I had a massive kind of. It was the same idea. Everyone had a 3+ invuln. I had 2 2+ invulnerables, Screaming Stars and stuff. But every single time, the Impossible Robe was a reroll. You could use it infinitely, but if you failed it, it killed you. And so it was really tempting because it was like a 1 in 36 chance that you would, instantly kill your guy. But odds are, like, you're invincible every single time. Like, first, like, bolter shot and be like, boom, dead. My, like, invincible Lord of Change is just gone. Dark times. As far as past rules, honestly, I think we're starting to get back to it. But things like Tank Shock were really janky at the time. Are you guys familiar with Tank Shock?
Vaguely.
No.
So it was basically any vehicle, like a tank or something, could declare a tank shock move through an enemy unit, and that unit could pass a leadership check basically. And if they passed it, they could choose to move out of the way, just walk out of the way, or they could choose to like kind of stand it down and chuck a grenade. And so they get like 1 shot to try to kill this thing. And if any of these things failed, the tank shock would basically just kill any of the models it passed through. And it was particularly nasty with like the Orc Battle Wagon. And so while that was a little too wild, it was literally like, okay, either Tank Shock does nothing or it just wipes out a unit. That was too extreme. I would love to see the return of like a Lane Raider should do a bit more in melee than it does now. So this idea of like tanks kind of moving through combat. This also is something that I wanted to see before they introduced the new emergency disembarkation, right? They kind of solved a bit of the problem of just surrounding a vehicle. Transports were just a liability in 8th edition, but this was kind of always the alternative to that, which is like if you surround the tank, they're going to tank shock their way out and just blast through, and then you can just get out. So I'd like to see something like that return.
Yeah,
that'd be cool. Imagine doing that so a Land Raider, there's some Terminators piling up.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolute carnage.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's a really, really awesome rule. And you're quite fortunate in that you guys obviously get to have the previews of a lot of the rules as they come out, and the playtesting of the rules. Am I right in thinking that Brian gets to see some rules first and you get to see other rules first? Does it work like that, or how does it work for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it works is all three of us are on an approved preview team. So we all have like the NDA for that, and this says that we are going to get codexes early, and then that basically allows us to kind of prepare content, prepare for the battle and stuff like that, and then we usually can talk about it at a certain given date. So we all see that, which is a bit in advance. And then Brian is actually on the playtest team, and so he's part of like testing things that are months and months away, which I actually just recently joined. So now I don't get to be as speculative, which is I'm really, really excited. I'm honored, and obviously I can't say too much about it, but it's good and it's encouraging stuff.
That's awesome, because I'll be honest, I find it so incredibly impressive from you and Brian, if he's been on the playtesting team all this time. We've spoken to a couple of playtesters now, and it is very tough to make battle reports when you've got two sets of rules in your head. But the fact that you guys are live, I just how does he not accidentally let things slip? I would do it all the time. I just have this like image in my head of just like Brian going like, okay, and so I reroll once, and then Bridger going, why'd you reroll once? And Brian going, no reason. Something like that, just because I couldn't keep, GW, if you're listening, do make me be a playtester. I could keep a secret, but to do live bat reps must be so hard. It's so hard to do that.
Oh, absolutely. No, I don't know how he's done it. Hopefully I'll do an okay job of it, but yeah, it's just you're managing that, and not only like not saying things, but also kind of remembering, like you're trying to play the army well, and you have this image of the army in two different states of time, and it's super, super tough. I can't even imagine. That's the thing that we constantly have to balance. It's funny because Bridger and I have this thing where we've talked about it on the channel, where we've sort of made a joke about something and then it comes true later on. Like it was months ago we had Hobby Hangout, and I was like making fun of the doctrines and how ridiculous they were. I'm like, well, I hope Necrons get something like protocols where it changes each turn, and I describe protocols in exact detail, and Brian's watching and he was just like, I had no idea.
Did I tell Adrian that?
Yeah. And then it came out, and I was like, oh no. That makes us like, people could definitely interpret that badly. I'm like, no, it's totally. And we've done this a few times where we're just like,
you could really troll with it, like make up some ridiculous rule, and like oh, oops, I should have said that, and it just completely bonkers, and everybody's gone like, the game's broken, we figured it out.
It's always dangerous though. I remember there was an article I saw which came out on. I can't remember which. It was one of the hobby websites. It came out like maybe a few weeks ago, and they basically said clickbait headline Games Workshop Codex release schedule for 2021 revealed, and it started off being plausible. It was like Dark Angels, Drakari, then we're gonna have like Sisters, Orcs, Tyranids, and it was like, oh okay, maybe someone's got some inside information here. And then it was like Space Marines, and then Chaos Space Marines, and then Space Marines again, and then it just that was the joke, just endless Space Marines, and the amount of like internet salt that went into came out of this, because I saw it posted on Reddit and stuff, and people going like, this is outrageous, and someone going, guys, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's parody. It's not real. It's fine. It's okay. It's all good. You will get your codex. Don't worry. It's just like you have to tread a careful line there.
You do. You really do. It's funny. I used to make fun of Reese because he's been in this business a long time at this point, and he's always super cautious, like mega cautious. He'll like say something, he'll make a joke that's like it's clearly a joke, and nobody's could ever possibly interpret it as anything else. But he's so worried because it's happened before, where someone like sees that and they take it and they interpret it, or they like use that as a ruling in their games, and he's like oh, but just kidding, obviously. And every time the poor guy can't make a joke and like not clarify that it's a joke afterwards. And I used to be like, oh, come on Reese. And then now I'm like, I totally get it, I 100% understand.
Such is the life of a Warhammer influencer.
Yeah, that's right. You never know.
Adrian from Tabletop Titans confirms is just on Reddit. Just
That's
type
right.
that in, you go.
Yeah. We had some good memes yesterday because I was actually making fun of this. I was like, oh yeah, the Stampa Codex is coming out, and like in our Discord, just like 50 Codex Stampa memes came out, and it was amazing.
Wow.
Well, actually, saying this, one thing I did want to ask is, so I've actually been following Tabletop Titans since like you guys were at 50 subscribers.
Oh wow, yeah.
So like right at the beginning, and it was super interesting because like you could see the intention was super high production quality, and actually at the time very scripted content. So it was Brian in front of a camera, talking about certain things. So number one, like, how did you get involved in the channel in the beginning? And also, why did you guys change from that kind of scripted content to a completely different, live bat reps is sort of the main thing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, yeah, Brian started this year and a half, 2 years ago, I guess, and as kind of a personal project to see kind of what could be done. Again, yeah, like you said, producing at a super high quality, which is something it's important, kind of find your niche when you're producing content. And while there's a lot of amazing content out there, it was a lot of like kind of hand cam style battle reports. And so he was like, what can we do if we take this into like a film studio? And so he was filming both we have the YouTube headquarters here, and so he works for Google, so he had access to that, which was really nice. And then also just filming at home, and so it was just him doing these tests, and he would like have these insane days where he would like go in, you do all the setup in the YouTube studio, film it, take it down, bring it back, edit it, and it was just, I mean, if anyone's done video editing before, it's massive. It's like,
yeah,
you have a day of shooting, but then you have 80 hours of editing for a video. It's something crazy. And so he was like, it was like, cool, this concept works, but it just takes all the fun out of it when it's just him working these 1 million hours, and it's not very sustainable, right? And so from there, he brought in me and a few of our friends as well to do a collaboration on the Assassins. This was when they had just come out with the new rules, and so we like wrote the scripts. We had a day where we all came in, we each did a video, and so Brian and I did the Eviscer video, and it was like the longest shoot day of all time. And then I didn't have to do any editing, luckily, and it was like cool. That was fun. That was good. Like we talked about it. It went well, and we kind of went quiet for a little bit, and then a couple months later, he's like, hey, you want to like do this for real? Bridger and I have like a studio we just finished building. I was like, what? Okay, I'll come in. And I come in, and of course it's like he's just converted his garage into this like amazing studio. And he's like, yeah, we want to like make this an actual thing and like eventually make it into a business. And I was just ecstatic. And he's like, it's gonna be a lot of work for probably not much gain potentially. And it's like, I don't care, let's do this. This is gonna be amazing.
And now you've gone full time.
Yeah, now I'm full time. This is just finished my
Which
first
is
month.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm super lucky to have amazing support from everyone. So
I think I think we were all there in those first few streams when you guys announced you gonna have the Discord and kind of the members service.
Yeah.
And how fast you guys hit those
crazy.
goals. Because like I'll be honest, you can't not do the maths in your head of that's quite a lot of people that like Warhammer, that is.
That's right. We were blown away. We were like, cool, we'll get a few hundred people, and it'll be nice, because that's kind of where the standard. We had done a lot of comparisons of Patreons and members, and we're like, okay, we want to be excited, but we want to temper our excitement. And we also had waited on doing it. We had been able to monetize for a little while already, and we waited because we're like, we want to do it right. And so we had done all this prep, and we're like, still like, okay, tempering our expectations. Hopefully it goes well, but who knows? We need to be. If we get 100 people, we'll be happy. And then it just blew it out of the water. So really, it's just awesome. I can't. We have an amazing community. But also, I realized I also didn't answer the other part of the question about why we went from pre-produced stuff to live. Again, it wasn't really possible, right? It wasn't feasible to do the level of content that we wanted to be able to do, and so that was honestly the summer when Ninth launched was kind of our big blow up when we got a bunch of new people and started becoming like a real full channel. But we had been working for like 9 months kind of perfecting this live show where it was like, okay, how do we reduce the editing hours? How do we do all these things and turning it into a stream show? And also taking a lot of cues from like, newsrooms and kind of traditional like sports editing and things like that, where a lot of the editing just happens live or cutting between cameras. We do obviously pre-production on like some of the content that we're going to be showing. So there's a bit of pre-production, then all the editing basically happens live, and we just go straight to YouTube. And YouTube was a really important thing for us because Twitch has always been kind of the main place to watch like streaming and things like that. My friend Jeff was big on Twitch, and so we're all like into that. And then, but Brian was like, no, we should try YouTube because it's a bigger audience. And the truth is, this kind of connects to the competitive thing. Like we're very competitive players, but most people that play Warhammer and watch Warhammer will watch it not as a live stream on YouTube, and that's how most people like to watch it. And so we say, this is going to give us the best of both worlds. We're going to take the chance and do the streaming on YouTube and do it live, but then also have it be available for everyone afterwards. And so that let us get to the point where we can make 3 shows in a week, and even our like recorded content we use the same setup. So like we've got it so that I can go into the studio, Brian and I can even just go into the studio and record a show just like the two of us, and we can do a bit of editing, but it's all kind of done at the spot. So that was like the first 9 months. It was a lot of research on how you can do that.
Right. Okay. That's super interesting to hear.
I mean, the end again. Sorry, but to get on again, we're not getting off the cringe train tonight, I'm afraid. But I mean, look, the end product for us as people to watch it is amazing. I mean, we're all just big fans, and I think obviously the testament to that is the growth in the community. As Ed says, I remember, I think we were both watching it, that like stream where you guys were talking about, if we have like 200 members join the Discord today, we'll do. I think it was you did like the little emojis, and then you did some stuff with T-shirts, and I just remember like Ed and I messaged each other and were like, yeah, they've gone from like 200 to like 500, and then Bridget was like, oh, what if we get 1,000? Okay, now 1,500, now 2, and it was just growth and growth and growth. It's crazy, and it's a testament to honestly, it's a testament to what you guys do. That there are, and obviously Warhammer is a Warhammer. Let's be honest, is a niche of a niche, right? Yeah, but it's there's that many of us that in the community that actually want to be involved and be part of that. I think it's fantastic. It can only be good for the hobby as a whole.
Right, I appreciate that.
All right. Well, yeah. Before Adrian dies of embarrassment,
I'm blushing. The listeners can't see that.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, to be honest, we had a load of horrible things to say to Brian, but you came on, thankfully.
Yeah.
Don't even tell. I won't even tell you what I was going to say to Bridget. But because moving on, let's talk about the Dark Angels.
Yeah.
Because you are newly welcome to the Unforgiven, and we actually haven't had a chance to talk about the Dark Angels since those books have since the book has come out.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah, first impressions. Adrian, how are you feeling about Dark Angels?
I'm loving it. Oh my gosh! Like there was a lot of questions in the air because the faction was already really powerful. We had already kind of burned through all the salt that the internet could handle about Deathwing Terminators, and so I was like, okay, let's see what it looks like, and it's great. They toned down a couple things that were just egregious, like the 5-up Feel No Pain bubble banner.
Deep striking, that was big.
Yeah, the deep strike, the -1 invuln relic, and so they toned those down. But then everything else was like,
is that not in there?
So what it is it's not a straight up -1 invuln now. It's a caps the enemy's invuln at 5+. And so,
right, okay.
Which is really elegant actually, because it doesn't screw the armies that have only a 5-up or only a 6, but it does hit your Harlequins and your Storm Shields. So it was like, this is a great change, still a great relic.
That's great.
Yeah.
As a Custodes player, I take issue with this relic. I'm not okay with it at all.
Oh my gosh!
This is what this book I think has been kind of nice, because don't get me wrong, when books come out, Josh, the war hipster who comes to quite like, he always says that the sky falls. It's every book that comes, and that is true. But this book has been, had a bit of a silver lining, because everyone's gone, OBSEC Terminators, that's a lot, but that means I'm probably getting OBSEC Sam Heim bikes, or I'm probably going to get new amazing Custodes rules, because they've made the Deathwing are now a faction of just really tough squads of Terminators.
That's right.
They can't do that for Custodes now. That's off the table. So now Custodes have to get something even more interesting and fantastic. So I think it's weirdly, despite as good as it is, has gotten a lot of people very excited. Yeah, that's kind of really cool.
It's so great, and it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, as far as like allowing these armies to play to their lore. And it's so exciting. I didn't expect this at all, to be honest. we didn't see this in all the other books that they had released, but this, I guess, is the first like niche codex where it really makes sense. So it's so exciting. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it was always tough as well. Dark Angels are a faction where they've, as long as I've played the game, they've always been one of the worst Space Marine factions, and the reason for that is because it's tough to give them an identity, even though they have as many unique units as they can, because they're a lot like Ultramarines, right? And so, as I was talking about earlier, it's not like Space Marines are going to be at the extremes of any game. They are like, just in terms of doctrines, they're a tactical doctrine army. It's tough to make those really competitive because it's like, Blood Angels have got their strategy, Iron Hands and Imperial Fist in theory should have their strategy, but they never really found a place to put Dark Angels, and now it really feels like they have, and there's so much flavour to that book.
Well, you guys are also like 3 armies in an army, right? You've got your Deathwing, you've got your Raven Wing, and you've got the Green Wing, I guess, for the rest of it. So it is, and again, thinking about future codexes, it is quite cool that they've now done it so that you can run a Deathwing army, you can run a Raven Wing army if you want. You don't have to mix them up all the time. So for someone like a Drakari player going forward, because again, they're the same thing. You've got the Covens, you've got the Kabalites, and you've got, what's the other one? I'm forgetting.
Witches?
Which Coven?
Yeah, Witch Covens, Homunculus Covens,
Cabal.
Cabal. Yeah. So three armies in a book, which has always had, although people have used it very successfully competitively. I mean, look at JT McDowell's list in the recent Las Vegas Open, which you guys were obviously part of. But that's a really good sign. Really good sign for them that is something that is going to be allowed to be addressed and something people can play with. I think it's awesome. Dark Angels Codex, from what I've seen of it, looks absolutely brilliant. I just think it's got a lot going for it.
What I was actually really glad to hear you say earlier, Adrian, that you were touching on earlier when you were talking, is you said, look, sometimes they get things wrong, like Morty. Yeah. And this is the thing. I think that I'd like to talk about this for a sec, just because there is a historical over-the-top reaction with 40k. So there was, the dude that burnt his Bretonian army, right? And there will be people that go way too hard, like, this army's rubbish. This book is way too good. Everything's ruined, and that is a problem. But I also think there are some people that go too much the other way in a weird way, where they'd be like, look, everybody back off, the rules are fine. And we've talked about this before on this podcast, where GW are unlikely to get everything right the first time. They really are. Even with the playtesting they have now, the game will get played so much more in the first week of it being the book being out than all their playtesting. My point is, I do think there is stuff in the Death Guard and Dark Angels books that are too powerful. I would change a couple of things. I have actually emailed GW, as I know you guys do, about my requests, and we've said before that everybody should send in their polite emails to GW with their recommendations. Is there anything that you would like to change going forward? Yeah,
so we've talked about this a bit on the channel. We're really nervous about rules that take away rules, right? And so, obviously this started with Mortarion, the auras that take off auras, because it's, people we keep making this comparison to counterspells and Magic, but to me it's not completely fair. It's similar, but not quite the same. Where it's like people want to be able to play with their armies. There's a difference between your army being very powerful and the other person just not getting to play with their rules. So I think, given the context that this exists already, I was happy to see that Dark Angels could do the same thing back to Death Guard. So I think that's good. But in an ideal world, I would just take away both of those things, right? Let people play with their rules. There's enough of that already. It's a weird thing, because it's like a book after book after book where they all kind of impact each other, because at first I was like, cool, auras, you take away auras, that's a problem, but Rites of War was also such a problem. So that kind of starts to balance out these big issues in the game. That's that, and I'm nervous in a similar note about the complexity, the interlocking. We've had, you guys watched the game yesterday, that giant melee of the conglomeration of rules, and it's like, what rules are turning off other rules and triggering other ones? And God, I can't. As a content creator, it's on one hand great because it's a lot to talk about, but as a person that actually plays this game, I'm a little concerned, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was going to say, just for listeners who haven't seen this already, get on to Tabletop Titans on YouTube. Look at the the Dark Angels versus Blood Angels game from yesterday, which was the 6th of February, and just observe the combat in turn 2 and how long that takes and how much dice rolling there is there, and fight on death and banners and auras, and just Adrian and Brian having to throw dice endlessly to get an idea of just how complicated things got in that particular game.
that broke Brian. He like after we talked afterwards, he's like, I literally just blacked out for a little bit there. I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know what I was rolling. I was like, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, in the Q&A at the end, he did look a bit like he looks like a broken man. It was just
yeah.
like
He
the
was
1,000-yard
shattered.
stare.
God.
Well, actually, talking about burnout, like, as you are now a full-time Warhammer player, I never thought we'd be able to say that was a thing.
I know, right?
For a start. It's crazy.
It's nuts.
But as a full-time fucking nerd, what's one thing I've always wondered is how easy, and have you even gone through this, how easy is it to actually get burned out on the game?
Yeah.
Because then I would be worried if I was a full-time creator, like, oh, if I get burned out on this game, I don't have a choice. I have to keep playing because it's my job and livelihood. So are there things you do to like maybe keep it fresh, or is it something you've already gone through?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've gone through it in a smaller sense with tournament play, with competitive play, because I mean I'm legitimately like obsessed with the game, so it's hard to like turn it off. I'm always thinking about it. With competitive scene, it's like you're constantly adjusting to things as they come out. You're working on new lists. You're practicing. You're getting up early on the weekends to go to tournaments and things like that. And so that can there's a bit of burnout that happens after a while. One of the things that has helped is just keeping it fresh, right? And in that sense, the channel has been great because, again, we do play lots of different types of armies. We do different styles of games, some more competitive, some more narrative. And so that really, really does help keep it fresh. And it's so funny. Like, again, last weekend we had the Las Vegas Open, and this was a massive weekend. We had, we didn't know that the Dark Angels were gonna come out until, the week of, basically, when we were already gonna have a crazy week. And James was like, oh, by the way, we're sending you this book. And so it was a ton of work, and we had other content that we had to produce. And so I get home on Sunday night, and my wife timed me. It took me about 10 minutes before I was already, working on models again. And so it's just like, I am obsessed with it, but also keeping it fresh. I was like, you know what? I played and thought about Warhammer and done a lot of rules kind of thinking and production this weekend, but I get to come home and just like clip some models and build them. And that's like a totally another thing. That's what keeps coming me back, is like this hobby has a million like micro hobbies inside of it. So.
I agree.
So for your Dark Angels list, what have you actually got inside of your list that you're looking to get?
Yeah, so this keeps moving around, right? I keep adding more Deathwing. The big disagreement Brian and I have currently is how many Deathwing Knights versus how many just Deathwing Terminators. I just love having objectives secured on cheaper Terminators, as great as the Deathwing Knights are. And I also love, again, we were just talking about how you can take away auras. I love not requiring things like Rights of War to get OBSEC. It's much harder to take OBSEC away from something that just has it natively. So I'm looking at, honestly, a Deathwing detachment. I have 6 Plasma Scepters built right now. I went crazy like a month ago, and I bought like 12 of them for my fists. And this was one of the impetuses behind me starting Dark Angels, was I had all these models that like I wasn't excited about using them for my fists, because I was like, they're not the best for fists, blah, blah, blah. And then the Dark Angels book comes out, and I was like excited to use these models again, right? So I have those. I have a couple Infiltrators, which I actually am really liking right now. And then the whole Ravenwing side of things is what I'm playing with, because I really love the Ravenwing. I'm going to build them regardless, but I don't know how many of them make it into like my pure competitive list. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think Ravenwing was the first thing that I got into in 40k. So it's what I'm most excited to. I'm the same. I don't think they're going to be the competitive route to go down, but I like the same. I think your list yesterday had a lot of the similar things that I'm looking to put in. This is the one, not downside, but when I go to make a list, I have about 1,700 points of stuff that is not auto-take is a strong word.
Sure.
You need a bloody good reason not to take all of these units. So I think it's probably worth going through, actually, just so people that play Dark Angels, what they can be aware of. So I think there are some slight tweaks you could make, but I think Azrael is so ridiculously good, especially if you're taking the big blob of Terminators. So to clarify to people how good Azrael is now for 170 points, he is a chapter master, and he's obviously going to get reroll wounds from turn 3 onwards, and he gets permanent transhuman. He can deny. He gives you 2 CP. He has a plasma gun that you can overcharge with and can't kill. And like, I love those guns on characters because they mean that they're great for finishing things off. So you have him, he's amazing. You have Ezekiel, who I think, you know, you guys take the Chief Librarian, which is also perfectly fine. I like Ezekiel because I like whenever there's specific models, I like to bring them just for flavor.
Naturally.
But he is super good. He is super cool. I do like his ability. In fact, yesterday was a great actually example of where Ezekiel would be good, because Ezekiel has that same ability that Blood Angels have a bunch of times, which is that you get +1 attack that doesn't stack with Shock Assault.
That's right.
Which is normally like, but then in the game yesterday, as we all saw, actually that all of a sudden starts to come up. So I quite like that. And then I'll be honest, I think 2 Talon Masters is just, I think they're a bonkers unit. I think they're 160 points. They have 12 shots, 6 of which are heavy bolter shots.
I think it's 18 shots. Right? 12 it's even more.
18 shots. Yeah, I knew I was right. Yeah, it's because it's 2 assault cannons and they're 6 shots. So yeah, they have an incredible amount of firepower, and it's the fact that you can screen them behind Terminators.
That's right.
And so if you put all these points into characters, like, you're basically making it so your opponent can't shoot anything but the Terminators.
Exactly.
And I think a squad of heavy intercessors or infiltrators, as you say, is basically an auto take, because you want something to sit on a backfield objective, right?
Yep.
How did you? In fact, that was a question I was going to ask you based on yesterday's game, was because you had the blob of Thunderhammer Storm Shields. Right. Did you find that was because it's a lot of points, right?
Yeah.
It's basically guaranteed 15.
Exactly.
So that is huge. Do you think you'd do that again, or would you switch those out?
Yeah, I was debating. Like I said, I had taken them and the infiltrators kind of to perform that role depending on the matchup, and it's a tough thing that happens in deployment where I have to kind of decide where Brian's going to try to come in, right? And I think knowing that he wasn't going to ever be able to push that flank, the infiltrators would have been just fine and much cheaper, and the Thunderhammers could have come in. So that's something I definitely noticed. And I think I would take them both regardless, but what I think I need to practice is deciding which one to leave back there when. Because you do get punished really hard if they take you off of that objective for a turn. You know, your clock resets. If you want to get the max, you have to stay on the whole game. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and the rest of that 700 points, is just Inceptors and Ravenwing Apothecary and the Terminators, which I don't think we need explaining because everybody knows what they do. But that is literally as I say, I think to me that's crazy, because that's 1,700 points of stuff that and you know, people might disagree, but I think all of those options, I just can't not select them every time we look to make a competitive list, and that gives you like 300 points of flavour. I guess it's a hell of a competent army. But they're just amazing. Yeah. Do you? And this, I guess, is a question for both you, Ed, and you, Adrian. On your Terminators, in terms of like the preferred loadout, are you sort of going for? Because obviously, and forgive me, obviously not a Dark Angels player, but I know obviously the Deathwing Knights are your kind of your Storm Shield, Power Sword type guys. On the regular Terminators, do you prefer like Storm Bolter and a combat weapon, like Power Fist, or is it like double lightning claws? Maces of Absolution.
Oh, sorry, Maces of Absolution. I apologise. But yeah, do you prefer that kind of double lightning claw close combat layout, or as you say, Thunderhammer Storm Shield, or a bolter? I like the normal. I like the Power Fist and Storm Bolter because it's a lot of firepower if you need it generally. We still have Fury the First from the normal Space Marine book, so you can hit on 2s. You're going to be re-rolling wounds from turn 3 onwards when you need it anyway. I think it's not perfect. There will be times the Lightning Claws is better. I think generally speaking it's better, and you obviously reroll hits from Azrael. You don't need the Storm Shield so much because you've got the 4 from Azrael. You're going to reroll once to wound from the Talon Master. I think it's the normal, and then 2 Cyclone missile launchers, just because you know those extra missile launcher shots a turn are always nice to have.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and that pairs also really nicely in the games where you do want to deep strike them. You know, you can drop down and get the +1 to wound. All those Stormbolter shots with -1 rend and +1 to wound, that adds up real quick. So I totally agree. One thing I've been debating is the command squads. We mentioned on the channel that we have a borrowed collection right now, so we're kind of playing with what we have. And I've been debating like how much to make those just stupidly annoying and give them a storm shield, or how much that's a waste. I'm going back and forth on that one right now.
Well, it was the game against Mortarion. We really saw that, didn't we? With Brian using them, and in fact, I think actually he did put a Cyclone missile launcher in each one, so something like that, right? And so that was really interesting and stuff like that. It's obviously. It pains me to see, but at the same time, but they are super good. Super utility.
Am I right in saying the command squads you can run them as like 2? You can have a unit of 2, right? Which is, I mean, that's obviously I assume they don't get obsec, right?
No.
But
No,
they,
just the
I mean, it's a unit of 2, like a utility unit, as you say, like to be tough. I mean, stick a storm shield on them, go and sit them on an objective. I'm looking at Quipster right now because I'm like, this is what your Custodes can do, and now other armies can do it as well. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, they are.
Custodians did it first and better. I'm just going to put that.
There you go. But the thing is, the reason that those command squads, I think, are one of the things that break the army, and I'm surprised they didn't fix, is they fixed the problem that both the Deathwing Terminators and Custodes have, which is you have these big blocks. You don't have lots of small squads, right? You know, with Custodes, you can unleash the Lions, which is like, that's a big commitment right there. But this is the same idea, just 2-man Terminators. Suddenly you can throw your assets in different places. They're real tough to remove, and it's like. And I think they underestimated them, honestly. They said, you know, the first squad is free if you have a captain, and that's it. The other ones you have to take slots for, but you'll gladly pay the slots for those things because they're great, and you're running a Vanguard where you'll have all these slots anyways. So yeah, they're really good.
I think the easy fix there is just to make it, as you say, 1 per captain and just leave it at that.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah, thankfully. I mean, one thing I thought was quite interesting is you actually took 2 librarians in your list yesterday, and I think that no one can really hold that against you. They are absolutely incredible psychic powers.
They're so good. It's bananas. I can't even.
They're the psychic power that turns off the auras. Is that Mind Worm? Am I right in saying?
No, so Mindworm is the fight last. It's 1 mortal wound and fight last. The one that turns off auras is.
Sorry, I'm like, do it live. Check the mechanics
somewhere.
What?
Yeah, it's number 6.
Mind Worm is fight last.
Yeah.
Mind Wipe is no auras.
They're doing something to your mind, right? That's the important
testing
thing.
their minds.
But what I was going to say is to your earlier point about like turning things off and that being an issue. One of the things I think is quite interesting is that, you know, obviously Mind Wipe. Get it right, seems like such a strong thing because it has that range to it, because it's like 18 inches, right? You can just project that out and just you know, tap somebody, and if you are a chief librarian, you have all that, you know, bonuses to your cast as well, whereas you know, and obviously Morty has the advantage of being like just a big model, a big base that moves a long way.
Fly.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas you know, the Blood Angels I'm thinking of here with their you know, turn off obsec relic, like that's a relic on 1 guy, so it seems not too powerful. So would you sort of fix you know, to go, sorry, this is convoluted, but to go back to the Dark Angels, would you sort of say that the way to fix that being a bit over the top is maybe say, I don't know, limit the range of it, or say that, you know, the librarian nominates a friendly unit?
So it's actually not as good as Morty in that respect. Because Morty is a range.
Yes,
he's a big model. And he flies,
and he's on a huge base.
Put it anywhere on the board,
agree.
And then it's gone. This is a psych power. You can deny it. It has to go off. It is a good range. I mean, I don't know, but this is the thing, as Adrian says. It's like when Death Guard get it, like they can't just, if they took it away from Dark Angels at that point, I'm like, then you have to take away from.
Oh yeah, no.
Guard,
to be fair, I would argue. I'm not just saying that, as I say, as Mortarion hovers ominously behind me. I'm not just saying that the Dark Angels should get rid of it. I agree. I think that's something that maybe should go from you know, as an aura from Morty and from, you know, any other codexes that get that in future. But it'd be interesting to see you guys, like, how would you change it? You know, if you had the chance, they said to you, right, we're going to do the FAQ. Adrian and Ed, come in. You give us your thoughts. How would you amend that? How would you change that?
That's true.
Well,
yeah, the shorter range is interesting, but go ahead, Ed.
Well, there were a couple of things I actually really don't like from the Dark Angels book, because I will give criticism to it where I think it is due. So I actually think that the Deathwing actually has quite an elegant fix. So I think that the elegant fix is you just make it just only ignore -1s and 2s. The reason I say it's quite elegant is because it's actually still very good at that point, because they're toughness 4. So everything that is strength 8 and above, and anything Blood Angels is still going to be affected by it. And also I think that actually then matches the existing successor trait Stalwart, which is only ignore -1s and 2s. I think I'll be honest, I do think it is a bit too much to ignore 1s, 2s and 3s, just as a flat rule. But a Deathwing is already very, very good. So the reroll wounds now is amazing. So I think I would change that. The other thing I don't like, and we saw this in your game, and this was against Sanguinary Guards, it was super good, but it's even better versus Hordes, is this 1 CP strat to stop second rows fighting. I do not like this strat.
Line unbreakable.
That
one I do know.
I think it's just too powerful versus Hordes. That's the thing. You know, as someone that plays multiple armies, you do look at these things from multiple perspectives, and I can't imagine playing with my Genius Stealer cult against Deathwing and somebody playing that strat, and I'm just like, oh. So that's a 1 CP strat, which is half your attacks.
Right.
Basically.
Well, that was the thing.
It's so crazy
I was
powerful.
Like, yeah, like, this is 2 CP, right? And he's like, no, I think it's 1. I'm like, my god. And it's tough because Horde were already super hit, right, by the fighting in double ranks. You have to be within a half inch of a guy that's within a half inch. The bigger bases on some of the models and things like that. Like, you know, I'm thinking about my Orc boys in particular here. It's pretty rough. It's pretty rough, honestly. I think. Yeah.
Even Gene Stealers, right? Like, you pile in, obviously Gene Stealers work better and they get the extra attacks if they're in the larger size unit, but like just even the way the model is, right, with it kind of leaning over the base like that, just trying to pile them all in, and then just the Dark Angels go, oh, and by the way, none of that mattered because we've turned you off. I mean, Ed and I were talking about this the other day when the book came out, and I do wonder if them, you know, as we sort of made the point throughout the podcast, is, you know, we may see things down the line in other codexes which just, you know, for Horde armies that actually just address this. Maybe they'll have some ability to kind of get around it. But yeah, it's a crazy, like, it's one of those strats. When I read it, I was like, that sounds quite good. And then when I saw it in your game, I was like, damn, okay, and it's only 1 CP. Wow.
Yeah. That blew my mind. It is one of those things that's much better when you see it in practice. Because I had the same thing. I was like, I think this is really good. I have to picture like when it would have come into play, and then it was like the perfect combat. It's amazing. I do worry for the older books. I think I'm not going to call it codex creep because I don't think it's truly that. I think all the codexes thus far have been roughly balanced, but they are definitely at a new power level. And so in particular, like my Harlequins. The Death Guard were already almost a death sentence to my current Harlequin list, and the Dark Angels doubly so. And so I think I have faith that this will kind of get addressed as the Harlequins get their new book. But in the meantime, I feel like they've been hit just so hard because they don't have all this extra layers available to them that also defends against the extra layers that the Dark Angels have, right? Kind of like what you're mentioning. They might change it down the line, but in the meantime, that's rough.
Yeah. And so one question I was interested to ask you, actually, because I thought it was a really your game yesterday was a super great showcase of this, which was one weakness of, you know, something I'm sure Quipster is aware of, is that if you take a foot slogging but resilient army, you can command that middle board, which is incredibly good. But how do you protect the rest of your? How do you make sure you've got those backfield objectives? Is there anything you're going to build into your list to kind of, you know, think about this or play style wise? Because, you know, we certainly those 10 Deathwing Terminators have got that middle objective.
Right.
They've got it down.
Exactly.
But what are you going to do about the backfield or front field or however you're going to do it?
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the things that definitely, and this 100% was a big, I won't spoil the ending of the game, but it was definitely something that made the game a lot tougher yesterday, where I was kind of forced to be directly in the middle, and I think it's really important to be able to play a bit offset from the middle. Often you're going to be doing things like taking Oath, where you have just a character. Again, there's a lot of untargetable units that are taking your Oath, and then you need to utilize that, like, whatever, how many hundreds of points of Terminators to do something else in addition. Hold an objective that is just offset, right? And that was important there. And then for the back objectives, I think this is obviously going to take a lot more kind of play testing, and this is something I'm appreciating the army more and more each game I play, where I'm like, it looks on paper like it's simple to play, but in reality it's not, because you have these like certain number of tools you have to use. And I think using things like the command squads to sort of offset them. I think deployment is extremely important, and this is one advantage. I will say a good thing about Ravenwing competitively, which is they're super fast. And we also saw that yesterday. Like, if I had Inceptors, they wouldn't be able to zip around, respond, and hide from the Death Company in the way that the Ravenwing were able to. So I think it's an interesting difference that they have. So yeah, and obviously this is where the infiltrators are important. It doesn't help you against Blood Angels when they can move that fast, but the infiltrators kind of protect that backfield, even if they're not your stubborn Defiance unit. I think that's really important.
I was saying all that. Do you feel like the new speeders or ATVs would have a place in a Dark Angels list for both of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're really interesting. Being able to either get an invuln if you move, if you need it, or to just stand still and get Grim Resolve for the +1 to hit, I think is interesting. I don't love Marine vehicles right now because they don't have the rerolls, obviously. And so anytime you can get a +1 to hit or some durability, I think that makes me actually interested in them again, right?
Yeah. I actually really like the ATVs was something I kind of experimented with a lot when playing Genestealer cults. When you play cult, obviously they currently don't hit particularly hard, and they're not very resilient. One of the things you can do with them is move block, and I used to do this all the time with my rock grinders, or just throw them. And in fact, I think going back a bit, when you first played Deathwing, I think you actually did this, and it's like, yes, the Deathwing will chew through a rock grinder, but if you can hold them off for a turn, that's 10
That's right.
10 points potentially. So I like the idea of the ATVs because you get the pre-move, so you can move them up, and the three of them could block off a significant portion of the board for your opponent to move through. And there's a lot less fly in the game now, so things like this become quite interesting. So I am really tempted to tech in 3 ATVs because of that, because it won't come up every game, but when it does come up, you can actually end some games turn 1.
I think that's a great point, and I think it's a good interpretation of the hunt, the pre-game move, which is like, it's scary, it's really expensive, and you don't generally want to throw everything in turn 1, but I think it's really interesting in the way that you're saying, where it's letting you position, it's letting you move block. I think that's where it's really, really useful, and it is situational, but it's so powerful if you use it right.
I was just going to say, to move slightly away from Dark Angels just for a second, and we will go back to them. This is merely just a brief foray into some Titans games past. One of the things I'm doing this year as part of my New Year, New Army, as well as the Emperor's Children, which at some point I'll build, is Tyranids. And one of the things I love which you did, and I now have 2 of them sitting in my cupboard waiting to be built, is using the ultimate, what I will consider to be the ultimate move blocking, but otherwise useless unit, which is, of course, the Tyranid Biovore. Just drop in spore mines all over the field. So if you want to move block, right, your ATVs are good, but do what Adrian did, bring a bunch of Biovores and just miss and drop spore mines all over the place and deal out mortal wounds. Why not?
That's right.
Sorry, that was a complete tangent, but I thought I'd bring it up.
No, they're great. They're super underrated, honestly. For sure.
Yes,
Now I'm feeling some real pressure to drop in a compliment for Adrian now.
It's again just a couple more from me, mate.
Do it.
It's fine.
Yeah, there you go.
Interesting. I was actually going to move on at this point, Adam, because Rezza has been coming up with game shows for us in recent weeks.
Yes.
So Rezza has got a new one, which is actually based off something you guys do a lot on the channel, isn't that right, Rezza?
Yes. So insert game show music here. So it was inspired from all massive fans. So I think we've alluded to a little bit in the conversation today.
Bobson. Sorry.
You've thrown me off. No, we're inspired from chat. So the chat likes to ask you who's your favorite Primarch, where do you take on a date, which one you would want to go on a date with, and so on. So I've decided to take it a bit of a step further and play shag/hook up if you're American, marry or kill.
Yes, I love it.
So last week we had Varak on, and we made everybody do a kind of 1-minute sales pitch about who their favourite Primarch was. So I decided we'll take the 3 most voted for Primarchs from that, and then have all of you guys choose who you'd shag, marry, or kill.
Sounds great.
Okay, cool.
So how does that sound? Everybody excited?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Right.
I mean,
I don't know. Star drops. No, wait. So who were they? The 3 most voted for Primarchs, Adam?
The 3 most voted for from last week were Sanguinius, the Lion, and also Rogaldorn. I'm afraid to say, Quipster, I'm sorry to bring this up, but unfortunately, Loyalist Fulgrim actually managed to garner less votes than write-ins, including Vulcan, Russ, and why would you even argue Ix-Corax was one of the answers given. So it was quite good seeing that. I think there were a couple of votes. There were a couple of votes for full.
Got a lot of votes on
but there were a lot of votes.
I was
on
quite
this.
surprised Gulliman didn't get.
There were a couple of mentions of Gulliman, everyone's favourite XL power user. So he was in there. He was in there. But yeah, the glorious Hawk Boy, the Richard Branson lookalike / Lord of the First Son of the Emperor, the Lion, and the Master Builder himself, Rogaldorn, were the top 3.
Say Master Builder really quickly, you could get a lot of trouble.
Yes.
That's right.
Right, so what we'll do shag, marry, kill, but also give me a little bit of reason why you'd want to do these with these people. So Alex, as the loyalist Fulgrim lover, who would you shag, marry, kill? Lion, Sanguinius, or door.
This is really tough. Okay, so I would kill the lion. And there are very...
That's gone.
The edge is leaving. I'm done. I hate you all. No, so the reason I would kill the lion is fundamentally because you can't shag him, because you don't know what he's up to. You don't know you don't know what he's doing behind your back. Like, I feel like
Snatching it.
But him being in bed with you would be part of some master plan that would ruin your life in some way. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's got something else going on. You're just like a cog in the machine.
He is asleep, so he's probably an easy one to kill, isn't he? You just
That's true.
pillow.
When the watchers get fed up with running the machinery that's keeping him in stasis, they're just like, okay, only dreams now.
Yeah, but like...
A single watcher unplugs his life support machine to plug in his phone, and the lion dies.
This has gone quite sideways.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you just know that like he's the kind of guy that if you go on a date with, he's texting like 6 other people
for sure.
at that moment. Just you don't know because he's really subtle about it. Like, and no one wants to feel like the other one in the relationship,
True.
like like you know what I mean. So like he has to die. That is my criteria.
Okay.
As for Shag, this is tough because like what you think is, or what comes to mind for me is that Dawn is like absolute dynamite in bed. Like genuinely because no, and the reason for that is because you don't expect it from him.
Right.
Like, you expect him to be like mechanical and boring, but secretly, like, he is doing to some absolutely freaky shit that like no one realizes. Like, that's my thinking. So shag him. Like, that's where that's gonna have to be.
So, Adrian, when did you regret coming on the podcast? At what point
I'm just glad we haven't talked about the Imperial Vista at all, so we're good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dawn is obviously into some like wild shit.
This is how the
Like-
Crimson Fist came about.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Sorry.
Got to bring it down there, Rich.
But-
Got to bring it down, you know.
But yeah, so like, okay, so you'd have to kill the lion because he'd obviously like be dating all of these. You'd be thinking about someone else while shagging you. You'd have to shag Dawn because he would be absolutely wild in bed because it's always the quiet ones. And you would have to marry Sanguinius because, like, me and Rich actually, we're the only people, I swear, in the whole of the Warhammer hobby who are like single. Everyone else seems to be married or in like a long-term relationship. Like, honestly,
You know that I'm upset you broke up with me.
Yeah, and Rich has a cat, actually.
Yeah,
so-
Rich-
I have a cat.
oh, that's true.
Well,
That's true. I have no long-term commitments to anything in my life.
He will
God,
never
that's
leave me.
depressing when you say it out loud.
Adam, can we make sure we send some flowers or something to Quipster later? in the week?
Yeah. We'll arrange that.
But like, so what I assume it's like to be in a relationship is if you're in a long-term relationship. Oh my god!
In the books I've read.
It's it sounded less depressing.
According
in
to
my
you,
head.
I've studied an extensive canon of romantic comedies, and in most of these,
Actually, we were talking about rom-coms the other day, but yeah. So like, my estimation of relationships is when you're with someone, you want to be able to grow with them over a long period of time. You want to be able to share and be in an environment of trust, so that you'd be able to tell them anything in a judgment-free way. And Sanguinius would be the one to do that with, because like you just know if you had a problem or if Sanguinius was doing something wrong in the relationship, you'd be able to sit him down and be like, put your hand on his knee, his giant 9-foot tall knee, and just be like, Sanguinius, there's a couple of things we need
His
to
knee
talk
with abs.
about. Yeah, there's a couple of things we need to talk about. I just wanted to chat, and he'd be like, I understand, it's okay, and he'd wrap you in his wings, and afterwards, after this emotional, spiritual chat, you'd have a cuddle, and everything would be fine. And so he's like a long-term partner. I feel.
And he can fly you places.
Yeah.
True.
I imagine he'd sing "I Will Show You the World"
Yes.
from Aladdin as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say though, the reason why I don't think he'd be a great shag is because like he'd be too like
Fresh.
vanilla. I feel because like I think
Yes,
I think
yes,
there's
the
like
9-foot tall Superman with wings would be a bit vanilla. Yes, that is a thing that.
yeah.
He would cry after.
I was gonna say he's probably crying during, if we're honest. That man is way too emotional.
So he'd just be uncontrollably sobbing
Yeah.
at every point during intercourse. So yeah, those are my
They're
reasons.
your reasons. That's good. That's good. It's good reasoning.
are amazing.
I think we need to set a time limit.
I think we just switch the characters up actually.
Yeah,
Well,
it's the
can I
characters,
can I give some quick counterpoints to, because I was going to go a bit contrarian, and I'll do it pretty quickly, right? Which is that you can't, you probably want to hook up with the lion, right? Because he's a good looking guy, he knows what he's doing, but you can't ever actually be in love with him, because if you tell him you're falling for him, he'll kill you. Because he doesn't like.
Actually, he doesn't get those jokes.
So
He's
yeah,
missing.
he'd be fine. All his friends would be like, you're gonna have to kill him. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Sanguinius, you can't have a long-term relationship really with Sanguinius, as much as I defended him in the pitch of Primarch, because the man would just write like goth poetry and just all the time it'd be like, oh, how you doing today, Sanguinius? And he'd be like, oh yes, I was thinking about my death and my upcoming sacrifice that I must make. Oh. It'd just be really
Say that
morose.
like the bad
It'd be
thing. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it'd just be very morose all the time. So I think long term, and as much as it pains me to say it, it's got to be Dawn, because like he's boring and fairly dependable. He'll build you a nice house and then he'll fortify it, and then he'll build a nicer house on top of that. It's just
Yeah, but Adam, he's gonna dom you so hard in bed. There's only so much you can take of that.
What is wrong with you, Alex?
yeah.
He'll also do some excellent work on a Grand Design season.
Yeah.
I read.
Yeah.
Imagine the conservatory he'd build for you.
Yeah, can you imagine like the episode of like Cribs?
He'd give you 2 extensions.
Yeah.
One in the house.
Oh, right, okay, so... okay, well, we'll mix it up a bit. So, Adrian, I'm going to give you 3 Chaos Primarchs to see what you do from here.
Oh, all right.
So, Magnus...
is this while they're chaos or when they're like loyalists?
No, right now.
No one. You're the only one who continually harps on about bloody loyalist, bloody Fulgrim all the time.
He's cool, okay.
Okay, so
Alright, let's hear it.
we'll do Magnus, Mortarion, and who should we do as the last one?
Lorgar.
Fulgrim.
Nah, it's too neutral.
Lorgar.
Isn't going to be obvious.
Yeah, it's got to be Lorgar.
Let's do
Okay.
Lorgar. Yeah.
Mortarion, Magnus, Lorgar.
Oh my gosh. All right.
We won't tell Bridger. Don't worry.
I know. I have to be very diplomatic about this response, of course. You understand? All right. So between the 3 of them, honestly, this is probably not a good lifelong decision because this guy makes a lot of mistakes, despite what people say. But I'd have to marry Magnus. Because he's a sweetheart. At the end of the day, like the thing is, he's one of the characters that I least believe could be evil. I'm like, you're not evil, you're just an idiot, but I love you for that. Like he's just very gullible. And so obviously he's gonna make like really bad long-term investments and things like that. And like, conversely to Dorn, we'll probably like lose our house and everything. But we'll be happy despite that. So I think I'd have to marry Magnus for sure.
You've also got one very practical thing with Magnus, which is that those big nipple horns, you can like hang stuff on them. So if you guys go out shopping, you can hang all your shopping on them, and
So
save your
right.
time.
And
We've also forgotten that model.
Yeah.
With the Magnus dong.
That's right. Oh god.
Oh no.
We don't talk about that commission sculpt. That was all
Fair
kinds
enough.
of wrong.
I have so many questions.
Actually, Adrian, have you seen that?
I have not. I have so.
Okay, so context, like basically,
Yeah.
someone commissioned a commission painter to sculpt, do a Magnus for him,
Alright.
but one that was completely naked and had an anatomically
Oh,
correct
no,
green
I've
stuff
seen
penis.
This. I've seen this.
Yeah, I'm in the Discord, Adrian. Of course you've seen it.
Yeah, naturally. Oh, so I see you're familiar with my work. That's amazing. Oh my
Good
god.
lord.
Yeah, I can't even. I am actually a proponent of like mostly naked buff Magnus over armored Magnus. It's just such a sick model underneath. But anyways, plus actually I could also hang my mini shirts while they dry off of their horns. Very important for me. Yeah, this is a big problem in my life. And so what do we have? We have Mortarion, we have Lorgar as far as shag and kill. That's tough. No, that's not tough actually. So speaking of things that would be extremely kinky, we know it would be Lorgar. We know Mortarion would be like really, really boring and really just angry. Like that's not a good time for anyone. Let's be honest, right?
Smell.
And
You definitely catch something. Let's be honest.
you have to kill him for sure. Yeah, you definitely catch something. And the thing is like he has those little the cherub nurglings around him all the time.
Yeah.
And so they wouldn't leave, right? Like they would like be there.
They should be watching.
Yeah, so like I'm not about that. So I would definitely have to kill Mortarion, and then you shag Lorgar because like that guy's a total freak. So, but as much as I defend him, there's no long-term relationship between me and Lorgar. I just couldn't support that. The guy would drive me nuts. Like he's good for like a weekend, you know. Go to Vegas with him, but that's about it, you know. So yeah.
Just insufferable.
Yeah, it's like guys going on about
Always supposed to go to church meetings.
Yeah, going on about the powers
church
again.
7 days a week. 7 days a week. Always at church.
And you're constantly having to like do revisions on his like newest chapter in the Book of Lorgar, like all the time. So.
But he takes you to church 7 days a week, but like bangs you in the car park every single time.
He'd also
In like the most like horrendous ways.
Incorrigible, yeah.
He'd also be massively paranoid about like crows, like or ravens. Like every time he thinks he's like, "Oh, it's Korax here." Just like,
Oh, God.
So you could never leave. You could just you wouldn't be able to leave the house.
This is true.
Not that you'd want to with him.
Yeah, seriously.
Right, so Ed, you ready for this? I'm gonna give you 3 random ones.
Can I not shag all 3? Sorry.
I mean, that's the real answer.
Okay, so Russ,
Ooh.
Khan,
Ooh.
and Gulliman?
Gilliman.
Ooh, interesting.
That is interesting. I think, I'll be honest, I've got you in my heart. I would marry Gilliman. I love Gilliman.
for
I think
sure.
I approve.
He is the only Primarch that seems to learn from his mistakes and seems to be a genuine person.
That's
and
right.
he is as close as we get to niceness, I think, from the Primarch.
You've muted yourself.
You muted yourself.
Your style.
I would kill Russ. All right, and the reason I would kill Russ is
wow.
because I'm a
I
Dark
was
Angel.
expecting that.
The reason I would kill Russ is because I'm a Dark Angel, and so I know I could.
Right.
Bitch.
Shots fired.
Mic drop.
No. So I have some problems with Russ. I actually love Russ as a character. Every time Russ is written, he is written incredibly well. He's very opposite the Lion to me.
Yeah.
Actually, in fact, Adrian, I remember you asked in the podcast what books to read. I'll mention some later. But like with Russ and the Lion, they're very different in that the Lion does incredible things, but is written quite badly. Russ does weird things, but is written really well. So, for example, in Russ's Primarch book, he starts off with this massive monologue about how, like, you know, the Lion is a dick, and the Lion thinks that, you know, he's just like this crazed animal, and he's just going to run in head first. When Russ then turns up to the battle, he runs in head first and immediately kills about 15 Dark Angels. At which point the Lion fires upon Russ's ship and is like, "Hey, don't do that. Don't do that." And Russ gets angry at the Lion and it's like, "If you ever fucking threaten my sons again, I'll kill you." And it's like, you've just killed 15 of his children. Right, and I never go over that. It's like Wolfsbane, for example. Wolfsbane is a classic, absolutely amazing book, genuinely incredible. Makes no sense.
None of it makes any sense.
This entire book has so much preceding it, where it's like Valdor, Dawn, Malgador. Every single one of them is like, can you kill Horus? No. Will this help at all? No. Should you stay at the Siege of Terror and help out Dawn here? Yeah. So what are you going to do? I'm going to go kill Horus. Why are you going to do this? This makes no sense. And so anyway, I would kill Russ, even though I do love him.
Surely
then,
the best way to think of Russ is he is like that guy in the pub or in the bar that just like is a good laugh, but just makes consistently terrible decisions. Right. Just like no matter what you do, it's like, oh yeah, he's gonna go off and have a fight with someone who's 3 times his size. But fine, that's Dave. That's what he does.
Yeah, and he'll get away with it half the time too. It's like, this should not have worked out for you, but it does every time, right?
Yeah. And like Russ has this thing where he had, like, you can describe a character as a genius a lot, and they do that a lot, and it's a really cool narrative, this idea if he's the, you know, brutal nobleman, whatever they call him. And, like, his scenes with Malcador are incredible. But, like, he can't then do dumb things. That's the you can't just call him smart. Anyway, and then, yeah, so I guess that leaves me shagging the Khan.
Mysterious.
Oh, you know he'd be amazing.
I don't think I would regret that.
Gotta go fast.
At all. Yeah.
The worst part is he's like saying that constantly.
The thing is, though, I feel like he'd go fast, but you'd be like, holy shit, what just happened? My God, that was amazing.
Yeah, the thing is I think as well, the Khan is one of the smartest of the Primarchs, and he is the most open to learning. And so I think he would have some he'd have some techniques, and you'd be like, all right, okay, there we go. That works for old the Sandman.
You ride really well.
But yeah, so that's me. So what am I doing? I'm marrying Legilliman, shagging the Khan, and killing Lehman Russ.
Yes. Adam, you did give a bit of a rebuttal.
I did.
So I'm going to give you an opportunity to have 3 Primarchs of your own.
Go on then.
So you ready for
Who
this?
have we
We're going to go
got
Chaos
left?
again.
Oh, here we go.
So I've gone Angron, Perturabo, and Kurz.
Oh my God. Although, since you haven't mentioned it, one thing I do want to say.
Good to know I've walked in at the end. I've walked in very late when the club's about to close down, and this is what's left for me.
Interestingly, that's how the Emperor also saw those Primarchs.
So
I will say, while Adam's thinking of a response, like, since we haven't picked Vulcan, you just know Vulcan would be like the worst in bed, but the one that tried the hardest.
And he would have such great hugs, wouldn't it? The spoon afterwards would be sensational.
Vulcan would be very loving. He would be a great, very loving relationship.
I've left out Korax, Vulcan, and Ferrous Manus because I kind of feel like they're really easy answers.
Yeah.
And Alfarius, because then you get like a threesome. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
So who have I got? I've got Kurz,
Perturabo, and Angron.
Perturabo, and Angron.
Oh, my Lord.
God.
Scraping the barrel on that one.
Jesus Christ.
I feel like
You
could
really
do it.
do this
You could do it.
strong.
Adam.
Okay, so I would actually kill Angron because I don't like the idea that he would kill me, right? Well, he's gonna kill
hate
you,
fucking.
so you have to kill him first because he'd lose his mind over something incredibly mundane. Like you can't marry him. You'd you wouldn't pick up the mail when it comes through the door fast enough, and he'd then burn the house down because apparently that's a thing that he gets annoyed about. Or he'd like go round and
Drag the milk.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, or he'd be like, oh, the neighbour's dog got into our garden, I'm going to go around and just slaughter them all, and they'd be like, oh, great, so now I'm married to an absolute murdering lunatic. So yeah, he's got to die. There's no reasoning with Angron. Also, because Angron as a Primarch, he had a very tragic story, but he's just such a knob to his entire legion. Like, his entire legion, they're like, Daddy, why won't you love us? You know, we've got the nails in our brains, and he's just like, no, I won't love you, I hate you all. It's just like, okay, fine, that's your shtick. Now you get to be put back in a hole in the ground on Armageddon, never to be seen again until GW decides to write you back into the setting. So yeah, and then out of the other two, so yeah, kill Angron. Kurz and Perturabo. Oh god.
Are you about to marry Kurz?
I'm
Jesus
I'll
Christ,
be honest,
man.
this is one of these ones where there are no good choices. So no, I think you have to. I think you hook up with Kurz, right? Because the guy's a lunatic, but like he's dark, he's brooding. You kind of do the whole like discount Poundland Batman thing that he's got going on. Maybe if you don't,
Harder.
Yeah, like he's kind of sorry, I was Poundland Dollar Store Batman. Like you can put up with the fact he's wearing like the flayed skin of your parents for like one day, but you don't want to do that for the rest of your life, right? So, and again, I think maybe he just loves justice in a kind of freaky way, and I think he'd be into some freaky stuff. So yeah, he'd be okay. You hook up with Kurz, which means you're then marrying Perturabo. And I will argue there is one very good reason to marry Perturabo, which is something I actually mentioned in the last podcast, which is that Perturabo is the only one of the Primarchs who plays Warhammer. He has a room on his battle barge, right? He has a room on his battle
I knew
barge
that's where it was
where
going.
he has a big gaming room, and he sits there, and yes, you would have to put up with the fact he'd be like, bloody Rogue of Dawn, every like 5 minutes, right? But he would build you an excellently fortified house, and yeah, he would put a gaming table in the middle of it, And also, you'd have 9 robots that would do things for you around the house because he's got the Iron Circle. So actually, Perturabo is not a bad choice for marriage.
I like Perturabo moaning at you about Dawn while Alex is shagging Dawn.
Yeah, but I feel like Perturabo would turn into that like the sort of like the old married couple from, or the not the old married couple, but like the kind of the like from a sitcom from the 80s where it'd just be like him and Dawn actually secretly get on, but then he'd come home from where like they work together at a construction firm, and then he'd come home and he'd be like, goddamn Dawn, he stole one of my sandwiches today, I'll get him, like that. Like it would just devolve into that sort of thing eventually.
But the thing is with Perturabo as well, if you were married to him, all you would have to do to keep him happy is just say things that make sure that he knows that you appreciate him. Just like show appreciation and love, and he'll like crack eventually, and he'll be like, oh my god, I love you. And it would become this like wholesome relationship.
Hey Perty, your giant gun hands are looking very shiny today. That's awesome. Good on ya.
Yeah. Oh, whereas like Kurz, you could sleep with once and you'd be traumatized, but it'd be the best night of your life because he'd just say wild stuff like spit in my mouth and slap me and tell me I deserve it.
You'd come out of that with
shit like that.
You'd come out of that with like a tattoo. I think, like you wake up the next morning and you just have like a tattoo, possibly some scarring and some like piercings, and just be like, "What happened?
What happened?"
Man, last night was wild. I'm never doing it again, but that was amazing.
Why do I have somebody's face on my wall? What the hell?
That's right.
So yeah.
So that was Game Shows with Rezza. Let's just go back to normal civilized conversations. Inside Game Show music here.
I don't think we can ever go back.
We've crossed the line there.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we have flattered Adrian enough for one evening and disgusted our listeners enough also. So let's call it a day there. So Adrian, obviously everybody here knows where to find you, but where can everybody find you if they are not familiar with Tabletop Titans?
Absolutely. So you can find us on YouTube, Tabletop Titans, and we do battle reports every single week. We do lots of other content. We are going to be pushing up the schedule more than ever, so definitely say hi to us in there. And we have links to our Discord, which is a huge, thriving community where we are constantly sharing ideas, armies, and votes for future content. So definitely check us out there and come say hi.
Also should say it's a massive community. I remember when it came out, I was talking to Quipster actually, we were talking, and I was sent to Quipster how big the community is, and Quipster was like, it can't be that big, and I actually had to send him a screenshot of how many members are in it, because as 40k communities go, it's absolutely huge. So why that's nice is because if you have any questions about any army, there will be someone there happy to correct you, probably.
It's amazing, yeah.
We're all debating in there fairly often. I have had some some debates in the Blood Angels one.
That's great. Yeah, they're running a Space Wolves like Q&A today. They're like answering questions, like talking about stuff. I'm like, that's awesome.
Oh, nice.
And they did like a TTS crusade, and this was that's all them. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, if you're interested in playing Tabletop Simulator, it's a good way to get into
it.
Cool. So, Quipster, where can people find you there, mate?
Yes, people can find me on Instagram and YouTube at QuipsterNerd, and I'm actually currently doing a interview series on DZTV called The Fireside Chat, so people can find me there as well.
Brilliant. And Rezza, over to you, mate. Where are you about?
You can find me on Instagram at Rezza Prime and on YouTube as Rezza Prime, which there will be videos eventually. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, and Adam, the legal department, where can people find you, mate?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at ADR Wargaming, and I promise I will put some more content on YouTube. I'm just finishing editing a video on the background of the Sisters of Battle and where they come from, so going to get that up soon. So yeah, come and check it out if you're into that sort of thing.
Cool, yeah. You can find me at the Sandman Hobby on YouTube and Instagram, and you can find us all on the Conclave 40k on Instagram, Facebook, and yada, yada, yada. So, thank you very much for listening this evening, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.